Hey everyone, this is Brent Johnson. I'm back here on Real Vision, and I'm really excited for today's conversation because it's an opportunity for me to talk with a guy that I've known for a very long time. And it's funny, I haven't actually spoken to him, or I haven't seen him in a very long time, and I haven't spoken to him in quite a while. But I feel like through Twitter and his blog posts and stuff, I have a decent idea of what he's thinking and what he's up to. But I'm really looking forward to this conversation for several reasons. And it's Mike Krieger of Liberty Blitzkrieg. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing great, Brent. Thanks for having me. I'm very, very much looking forward to this as well. A little symposium, a little discussion on, the future of humanity, because of course we both know for sure what's going to happen. So we're going to
exactly.
Everybody.
We're going to let everybody know exactly how it's all going to play out, right?
That's right.
No, but I think part of the reason this is going to be a fun conversation is, and I just realized this morning. I didn't really think about it, but I grew up probably 3 hours straight west of where you live now. And I couldn't wait to get to New York City. And you grew up in New York City, and now you couldn't be happier to live out where I used to live. So the juxtaposition of it kind of matches up with everything else. But the really interesting part to me is I know just from your writing and from speaking to you and, watching your comments and stuff, that we see the world much the same way. Or we see much of the same problems, I guess I would say. And yet we've come to some conclusions that are the same, but some conclusions that are kind of diametrically opposed. And so I think it'll be kind of fun to dig into all of that and figure out, what the differences are, why they are, and maybe somebody will learn something along the way. But let me give a quick background on Mike's from my perspective, and then I'm going to have you kind of give it on yours. But part of the reason that I came to know Mike was he started a blog, I guess, for lack of a better word, kind of into the height of the global financial crisis or shortly thereafter. He had a number of problems, both personally and I guess from a business perspective, with what went down after the global financial crisis, as did I. I think it affected both of us tremendously and impacted both our careers and probably our family life and social life and a whole host of things. And so when Mike was writing his blog, it really struck a chord with me. And not only was he writing about interesting things, but he was willing to say things that some other people wouldn't say out loud, which I very much appreciated. So that's kind of where it all started. And he, relocated from New York to Colorado, and from what I could tell, couldn't be happier. So anyway, that's my perspective of Mike and why I'm interested in talking to him. But I'm going to let Mike kind of give a little bit of a background on himself as well.
So Brent, thanks for that introduction. That's basically a nice summary. I'll try to be as brief as possible. Essentially, the most impactful period of my life by far. Nothing comes close. Probably nothing. There's a good chance nothing ever will come close to the sort of rolling impact the financial crisis had on my entire life existence, where I live, all of that. As you say, when it happened, I was sitting on Wall Street. I was a commodities, mostly oil focused, because that was my background, but a commodities desk analyst on the trading desk at a firm called Sanford Bernstein. In that role, I was looking at all these companies, also the macro, right? Because as you know, oil is an extremely macro industry by nature. Yeah, sure. So it fit my personality. And I started discovering certain things. When I really started, I guess my awakening essentially was when the oil price was spiking to 150, and I'm an oil analyst, and I was having trouble figuring out what was going on. And then ultimately, it just looked like a big negative dollar bet. That's essentially what it looked like, right? And then when the crisis came and the dollar, started spiking, and that all those trades unwounded, and and the whole global economy started falling apart. Obviously, the oil bubble deflated, and et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, but what really hit me was because before that, I hadn't really been thinking about the dollar, at all, which sounds strange from a commodity analyst standpoint. But people weren't talking about it. If you were looking at research from the street about the major oil companies, the dollar might be mentioned in passing, but it wasn't a core focus, right? Of the analysts. So it wasn't a core focus of mine. So that was sort of the red pill as far as the whole macro awakening I had. And from there on, I started, learning more about sort of what underpins the financial system, all the things I never knew or was never taught in my college education or even on Wall Street prior to that. Yeah. And then when the crisis hit and I saw the response, I became extremely disillusioned and upset and also just kind of unhappy in my seat, because the way I saw it and continue to see it was that there was clearly a crisis, right? But you can respond to a crisis in all sorts of different ways. And it was clear to me that the focus of the people that were involved in solving the crisis was to essentially keep everything propped up, right? So in other words, not reform, not say, well, why did this happen in the first place, and why will it maybe happen again? Let's figure that out. Let's get to the core issues here and reform. Instead, it was, we're going to do anything to prop it up. And in the process of spending trillions to prop it up, you were essentially propping me up in my seat. You were propping up my coworkers. And from my perspective, that was one of the most unethical things you could do. We were the last people on earth that needed to be saved or propped up or whatever. And so then I had this situation where I looked around me and I thought, I'm not getting anything out of this, right? Before it was feeding my ego. And I felt great. I was like, I'm making great money. I'm so good at my job, right? That's why I'm earning money, because I'm good at my job and I'm, whatever. And then I realized, wait a minute, I'm just sitting close to the guy, the wizard behind the curtain. That's right. Essentially why I'm making a lot of money. So it was really valuable for me because it shed my ego in a big way. And it made me question myself, what I was doing, what the people I was sitting around were doing, and why they were benefiting. And I couldn't really, deal with it anymore. The funny thing was I did stay on for another year and a half or so. And the only reason I did is because I was able to write these macro emails that I would write to like huge clients on Wall Street. Basically all the.
I think that's when I first found you, because I'm pretty sure you were still at Bernstein when I first came across one of these missives. And it was written in a way that nobody on Wall Street would ever actually say these things if they wanted to keep their job.
Exactly. Basically right. Yeah. I mean, I just got to the point where I didn't care.
You didn't care. Yeah.
Here's the funny part. Clients loved it. They really did. Yeah. Right. And you probably loved it.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah.
Right. But internally there were problems,
right.
And I got, the carrot and stick approach was always being put my way. I was being told, you settle down here and you'll get promoted next year. Or I would walk into the head of trading's office once a week, and he would have printed out my email, highlighted, and he'd read it back to me. And he'd say something, Mike, maybe tone that down a little. And I was like, sure. And then I would do it again the next week, right? Anyway, so at some point, right, it became clear that there was going to have to be a break there. I wasn't into it. And really, at the end of the day, if I had to change to keep my job or get promoted or whatever, it would have been worth it. And so I left. And so then within that same 12 months of leaving, I started writing for anyone, essentially, right? Zero Hedge published one of my things. They got caught of it. I was interviewed by Max Kaiser. This is all 2010. Yep. I drove cross country, and that's the point when I was like, okay, don't want to be in New York City for sure anymore. I'm moving out west. So a lot of changes within that 1 year, all catalyzed and sparked by the crisis. And still to this very day, my entire, career or path and perspective is still completely framed and colored by all of that experience. So, there's been hard times in between that and here.
Sure.
But yes, right now, things are at a really nice place, and I'm really happy. And we have a growing family, and Colorado is wonderful. Hopefully we don't turn into California, which is like what everyone's worried about. But things are good over here.
Hey, if you like this clip, be sure to check out the full interview and more only on realvision.com/crypto. It's 100% free. Sign up now.